Let's go right ahead and speak to one of the loudest voices fighting against the Brexit tide. Ken Clarke joins us now from Nottingham. Mr Clarke, a very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Let's dive straight on in with Brexit. And the negotiations at the moment appear to have stalled for one reason, the financial settlement. Rather than us getting together with Brussels and trying to get to grips with a number that suits both sides, it appears our strategy has changed somewhat, and we are now arguing that there is no legal obligation for us to pay anything. What do you make of that?
Well, I think the concentration on the money is because large parts of the media, I mean, not of course this very respectable programme, think it's the only bit of the thing that they can interest their readers in. I think the average member of the public is very switched off with all the details about single markets and customs unions, tariff barriers, things which weren't talked about at all during the referendum campaign. It's quite easy to get people excited when you say the government's going to pay money to foreigners. After all, they were told that £350 million a week was going to be spent on the health service once you stop paying any money to Brussels. Now, everybody knows that if you are going to have access to the market, you're going to have to pay some of the costs of that. The Central and Eastern Europeans will expect regional funds to help them one day become more competitive with the French, the German and the British. And if the British want to be part of that, they'll have to pay a contribution. And there are all sorts of things we've signed up to. There are budgets which we've signed up to, things we will benefit from. And it's just a question of how much. Now, I understand why
Clarke, that's a fairly big question, though. Mr Clarke, that's a fairly big question, though, isn't it? I mean, the Brexit bulldog himself, David Davis, writing in the Sunday Telegraph this morning, says this: with the negotiations delivering steady progress on issues like citizens' rights and Ireland, this is not a moment to go backwards. No mention of the financial settlement. It appears we're a country mile away from that.
Well, the financial settlement is, of course, important. But if you announce it now, we all know that everybody on the right of British politics will say this is outrageous, appalling. Particularly all the Eurosceptic newspapers will say this is absolutely shocking and disgraceful. And everybody on the other side will start explaining what our legal and moral obligations are and what benefits we get in return for it. Now, I quite understand. I think the British government wants to leave all that until we've got a much further on with the big, substantial issues. The sum of money is not ruinous to the British economy. It's not out of line with what we've been paying for the last several decades. I think it's the EU's going to insist there's some agreement on how eventually it's going to be calculated, what is in, what is out, what is the basis of working out how much. I understand why David wants to sort of draw a line there and get on with other things. Otherwise, the whole debate in Britain will get comically dominated by arguments about how outrageous it is that we should pay a penny. It's like the constant debate we have trying to defend overseas aid, which is very well-spent money, but it's quite easy for a populist to tell somebody, why is British taxpayers' money spent abroad? Why isn't it being given to you or spent on your public services?
I mean, given all of that and given your opposition to Brexit itself, let's say, I mean, I wonder what you make of the comments from the former Prime Minister Tony Blair this morning, that we can hold on to single market membership, that we can enjoy all those benefits, we can stay inside the European Union. All it takes is a few domestic law changes when it comes to immigration and, of course, the European Union to do the same. What do you think?
Well, I'm pessimistic about staying in the European Union. I think but Parliament voted by an enormous majority to be bound by this referendum. I think, myself, it's inevitable we are going to leave the European Union. What matters now is how to keep as much of the benefits we've had for the last 40 years. I mean, this has been the basis of our relationship with most of the countries and the rest of the world. We're one of the leading influential players in the EU, and it's certainly played a big part in the comparative prosperity, on the whole, for most of those years, rising living standards in this country. Now, Tony still thinks we can stay in the EU. I think the mood in the country, it's hopeless to expect that. What we now need to address is the practical consequences. What's our new relationship? And the idea, I mean, the single market and the customs union simply mean we don't start putting new barriers between ourselves and our biggest single market and the main attraction for investment and so on. And I think that we probably can achieve. It is quite important, and I say that most of the public, I mean, I hope none of our viewers yet, their eyes glaze over once you talk about this. But the fact is that the easiest way of explaining it, I think, is there's absolutely no point in a free trading country, very dependent on trade, putting new barriers just to satisfy a political movement, new barriers between trade and investment, and driving away foreign investors as a result. We hit our economy very badly.
But we are running out of time, though, Mr. Clarke.
It's a long transition deal.
Yeah, but it's a long transition period, but we're running out of time to agree. We're running out of time to agree that those things. Jeremy Brown, the city's
we're not going to.
After you,
we're not going to agree any of this in 1990. We're not going to agree any of this by 1990. That's why we need a long transitional period, interim period, whatever you require. That's inevitable. Otherwise, the idea that you jump off the cliff and then put out your arms and you soar off into those wide blue skies yonder, with everybody in the world rushing forward to open up their markets to you in trade deals, that's all rubbish. We obviously need, and everybody's accepting, and ministers are quietly hinting, that we need a transition period. That means 2, 3, 4 years in which we stay essentially with the status quo as long as business and industry is concerned. And
Mr. Clarke, sorry, I have to interrupt at this point. There are others within your party, including Ian Duncan-Smith and a number of others, who make the point that if you want to have a transitional agreement, you need to know to what you are transitioning. Ultimately, it looks like Phase 1 discussions will not be... they will not have agreed that we've made sufficient progress in October. That means it will be December before we do it, which means negotiations on trade and on transition start in January. That gives us 10 months to sort out all the detail. Can it be done?
No. Not remotely, not sensible to believe it can be done. What we're on transition to is, as the government makes quite clear, we hope a free trade agreement with the European Union in which we're not a member, we're a third-party country, and outside we've got satisfactory arrangements to carry on trading with them, which has been done by other countries, done by Canada, been done by Norway, been done by Switzerland, and the Prime Minister, Theresa I keep saying she wants a different one, a special one for Britain. Well, that's going to take a lot of discussion. It is hugely complicated. And what you can't do is say, well, unless we know exactly where we're going to, we're suddenly going to put tariff barriers, regulatory barriers, have new customs procedures at our borders, and we're not going to have people coming to work here in the health service anymore. That would be utterly lunatic because of this deadline in 1990. Sorry, do I talk about it's deadline in 2019, which is simply not enough time.
Mr. Clarke, before we get to that,
what we invoke.
Mr. Clarke, I just want to move us on slightly. I mean, before we get into all of that, before we even reach that point, we have the small matter of the second reading of the EU withdrawal bill. Now, you and a number of others have raised concerns about the Henry VIII clauses, this power grab, nominal power grab, supposed power grab by the government. How are you minded to vote tomorrow?
Well, it depends. It's the government, I think, is going to have to change the wording of the bill. I mean, the basic point to make all the European regulations British regulations needs a bill, so that they should have brought forward one that's properly drafted. But a government that started by saying it didn't want Parliament to have anything to do with this, it was going to use the royal prerogative, and we weren't even going to have a vote on Article 50, has somehow induced the draftsman to produce a bill which would give Henry VIII powers which he would have been delighted by. And just in case they need them, they've given themselves sweeping powers to put in place whatever arrangements they want on any subject, to actually decide how much money we give to the Europeans without Parliament having a vote on it. This is ridiculous. If they come back tomorrow and say, of course they're going to amend it, we've been reassured they're not going to use these powers in any policy-making way at all, well, I think Parliament would be sensible to get them to write it so they're not giving themselves the possibility of using powers that no government's ever tried to take at the expense of Parliament before. Then we can get on to the substance, which is all this about Are any rules going to be changed in such a way that we get in the way of our trade with Europe or changes our arrangements with Europe in any other way, which the government seems to be saying, on the whole, no, it's not.
In discussion of politics these days, Mr Clarke, sorry to interrupt. In discussion of politics these days, we're never far away from comments about the Conservative leadership. Jacob Rees-Mogg perhaps damaged his chances this week with some choice words on abortion. Given the party's direction on the European Union, given the words of Mr Rees-Mogg, I just wonder, would a young Ken Clarke naturally gravitate towards the Conservative Party?
Well, I joined the modernisers in the Conservative Party at a time when we were campaigning for Britain to join the European Union. There's an irony about my career. In my first Parliament, Britain joined the European Community. It's benefited, I think, for the 40-odd years that I've been in politics. My last Parliament, we're deciding to leave it for a lot of silly populist reasons. But as you say, everybody turns to the leadership. When the Conservative Party can't think of anything else to do, it tends to have a leadership crisis when it's rather puzzled by policies. And the reason is, I'm quite aware of the fact that the things we've been talking about in this interview, they're complicated, they're quite difficult. They concern investors and trade union leaders and businessmen more than the ordinary member of the public. The Eurosceptic campaigners offered simplicity. This dangerous, changing world, all these foreigners living here now, all Brussels' fault, leave the EU, one bound we're free, and a brave new world will emerge. Well, that is nonsense, and it's no good diverting ourselves by saying, would Jacob Rees-Mogg be a 21st century Prime Minister, which I suspect Jacob thinks is rather a silly question, certainly at this stage of his career. I'm afraid the government has to be given only the powers required to manage a transition. We've got many years of complicated negotiations in front of us. Our economy is in a very worrying state. I mean, we have slowed down very badly. The outlook is very uncertain. We need as soon as possible an assurance that economically and in trade terms, our arrangements with Europe are going to carry on for some years as they are now, so that this can all be sorted out sensibly. It's our children and our grandchildren we should be thinking about, not next week's newspaper headlines. And can we have fun with a kind of Strictly Come Dancing type contest between people who want to be Prime Minister? Theresa May is there. There's no prospect of her being replaced by anybody sensible in any sensible process for the next 2 or 3 years. Theresa's got the job of presiding over a smooth transition through a long transition period to an arrangement that at least will minimise the damage in a few years' time.
Ken Clarke, I'm afraid we're going to have to leave it there. And I did even have a question about you, whether or not you'd consider an appearance on Strictly Come Dancing at some stage after your parliamentary clear. But we'll leave that for the next time.
Certainly not the bake-off. Standing in leadership elections is the only bad habit I've ever given up.
Ken Clarke, thanks very much for being with us.